Have you ever wanted to change your life, but somehow found yourself doing nothing? You knew you needed to start. You knew you needed to make a decision. You knew that something in your life had to change. But then your mind started asking questions. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I choose the wrong path? What if I am not good enough? What if I regret my decision later? So you waited. You thought about it a little more. You searched for answers. You watched videos. You asked other people what they would do. And while you were trying to find the perfect answer, time kept moving. One day became another. Another week disappeared. Months passed quietly. And then, one morning, you looked at your life and realized something painful. Nothing had changed. Not because you were incapable. Not because you had no dreams. But because you had spent so much time thinking about taking the first step that you never actually took it. Daniel was 24 years old, and from the outside, his life looked completely normal. He had a small apartment, a regular job, a few close friends, and enough money to survive. But inside his mind, there was a constant battle. Daniel thought about everything. He thought about his future while eating breakfast. He thought about his mistakes while working. He thought about tomorrow while lying in bed at night. Even simple decisions became difficult for him. If someone asked him what he wanted to do with his life, he had 10 different answers and none of them felt right. He wanted a better career, but he was afraid of choosing the wrong one. He wanted to start a business, but he was afraid of losing money. He wanted to become healthier, but he kept telling himself that he would start when life became less stressful. He wanted to change, but his mind always found another reason to wait. Every morning, Daniel's alarm rang at 7. He would open his eyes, reach for his phone, and tell himself that he would get up in 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes often became 30. He wasn't sleeping. He was thinking. He would stare at the ceiling and imagine his future. He would think about his job, his money, his dreams, his failures, and all the things that could possibly go wrong. By the time he finally got out of bed, he already felt exhausted. His body had barely started the day, but his mind had already lived through hundreds of imaginary problems. At work, the same thing happened. One afternoon, Daniel's manager called him into the office and offered him the chance to lead a small project. It wasn't a life-changing opportunity, but it was a chance to grow. His manager believed Daniel could handle it. Daniel smiled and said, "Thank you. Let me think about it." He went home that evening and started thinking. What if he made a mistake? What if the project failed? What if his coworkers thought he wasn't capable? What if his manager expected more than he could give? Daniel spent the entire night thinking about those questions. The next morning, he still didn't know what to do. The following day, he was still unsure. 3 days later, his manager gave the project to someone else. Daniel heard the news and quietly said, "Maybe it wasn't meant for me." But deep inside, he knew the truth. The opportunity hadn't disappeared because he wasn't talented. He had lost it because he couldn't decide. A few months later, Daniel had another dream. He wanted to start a small online business. He had researched the idea for weeks. He knew what he wanted to sell. He knew who his customers might be. He had even saved enough money to make a beginning. But once again, his mind stepped in. He told himself that he needed a better logo first. Then he decided he needed a better website. Then he thought he should learn more about marketing. After that, he decided he needed to understand what successful business owners had done before starting. Every time he prepared to take action, his mind created another reason to wait. Daniel became very good at preparing for a life he never actually started living. His friends began moving forward. One friend started a small business. Another moved to another city for a better job. Another began exercising and slowly changed his health. Some of them succeeded. Some failed. But even the ones who failed were learning. They were gaining experience. They were discovering what worked and what didn't. Daniel watched them from a distance. He sometimes felt jealous, but he also told himself that they were simply lucky. The truth was much harder to accept. They were not necessarily more talented than him. They were simply willing to move before they had all the answers. One night, Daniel sat alone at his desk with his laptop open. His business plan was on the screen. Everything he needed was there. The idea was there. The plan was there. The money was there. But still, he couldn't begin. He stared at the screen for several minutes and finally closed the laptop. "Maybe next month," he whispered. It sounded harmless. Just 2 words. Maybe next month. But Daniel didn't know that those 2 words would become one of the biggest excuses of his life. A few days later, Daniel received a phone call from his childhood friend Ryan. They hadn't spoken properly in months. Ryan told him that he had accepted a new job in another city and would be moving soon. Daniel was surprised. He asked, "When did you decide?" Ryan laughed and said, "About 2 weeks ago." Daniel asked him, "Were you completely sure?" There was a short silence on the phone. Then Ryan said, "No. I was scared." Daniel became quiet. Ryan continued, "I kept waiting to feel ready. But I realized something. You don't become ready before you move. Sometimes you become ready because you move." Daniel didn't say much after that, but those words stayed in his mind for days. That weekend, Daniel went for a walk in an old park near his apartment. He needed some quiet. He walked slowly beneath the trees until he noticed an old man sitting alone on a wooden bench. The man was holding a small glass of water in his hand. Daniel passed him, but then noticed something strange. The old man's hand was shaking slightly, causing the water inside the glass to move. Daniel stopped and asked, "Are you okay?" The old man smiled and said, "I'm fine." He looked at the glass and then at Daniel. "Do you know why the water is moving?" Daniel looked at it and replied, "Because your hand is shaking." The old man nodded. Then he placed the glass on the bench. Within a few seconds, the water became completely still. The old man looked at Daniel and said, "The mind is like this glass." Daniel didn't understand. The old man continued, "When your mind keeps moving, everything inside you becomes disturbed. You think about what happened yesterday. You worry about what might happen tomorrow. You imagine failure before you even begin. You create problems that don't exist yet. And after thinking about all of them, you feel tired without actually doing anything." Daniel stared at the glass. The old man said, "Thinking is useful when it helps you make a decision. But overthinking is different. Thinking helps you choose. Overthinking keeps you from choosing." Those words hit Daniel deeply because he suddenly saw his entire life in that glass. He realized how many opportunities he had delayed because he wanted certainty. He wanted to know that his decisions would work before he made them. He wanted to know that his business would succeed before he started it. He wanted to know that people would support him before he took the risk. He wanted to know that he would never fail before he tried. But life doesn't work that way. Nobody gets a guarantee before taking a step. Nobody knows exactly what tomorrow will bring. That night, Daniel went home and opened his laptop again. His business plan was still there. His mind immediately started asking questions. What if it fails? What if nobody buys anything? What if you lose your money? What if people laugh at you? But this time, Daniel didn't try to answer every question. He asked himself something different. What is one thing I can do right now? He didn't build the perfect website. He didn't create the perfect logo. He didn't wait for perfect confidence. He simply created a basic page and uploaded his first product. It wasn't perfect. It was actually quite simple. But it existed. For the first time, the dream that had lived inside his head for months had entered the real world. Daniel sat back in his chair and looked at the screen. He was still afraid. Nothing had magically changed. His heart was still beating fast. He still had doubts. But something inside him felt different. He finally understood that being afraid did not always mean he was making the wrong decision. Sometimes fear simply meant he was doing something unfamiliar. From that day, Daniel created a simple rule for himself. He would stop trying to solve his entire life in one day. Every morning, instead of asking, "What am I going to do with my whole future?" he asked, "What can I do today?" That question was smaller, but it was powerful. If he wanted to become healthier, he didn't promise himself that he would completely transform his body. He simply walked for 20 minutes. If he wanted to improve his career, he didn't try to learn everything at once. He studied one useful skill for 30 minutes. If he wanted to grow his business, he didn't spend another month making plans. He completed one small task. Slowly, Daniel changed. Not overnight. Not because some magical motivation appeared. He changed because he stopped waiting for the perfect feeling before taking action. The man who once spent hours thinking about a simple decision began making small decisions in minutes. The man who once needed motivation before working started working even when he didn't feel motivated. The man who once saw failure as proof that he wasn't good enough began seeing failure as information. If something didn't work, he learned from it. If he made a mistake, he corrected it. If a plan failed, he changed the plan. He finally understood that moving forward did not mean never making mistakes. It meant refusing to let mistakes keep him in the same place. 6 months later, Daniel looked back at the person he used to be. He realized something painful. He hadn't lost those months because he had no opportunities. He had lost them because he kept waiting for certainty. He had confused thinking with progress. He had confused preparation with action. He had confused fear with truth. While he was imagining everything that could go wrong, he was missing everything that could go right. Maybe that's happening to you too. Maybe there is something you have been thinking about for months. Maybe you want to leave a job, start something new, learn a skill, improve your health, repair a relationship, or simply become a different version of yourself. But every time you think about starting, your mind gives you another question. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I'm too late? What if I'm not good enough? What if people judge me? And because you don't have the answers, you wait. But here's the truth, you may never have all the answers. You will never know exactly how a new job will turn out. You will never know whether a business will succeed. You will never know whether people will support your dreams. You will never know whether your first attempt will be good enough. You will never know whether the path you choose will be perfect. And you don't need to. You don't need to see the entire road before taking the next step. You only need enough courage to take the step you can see. There is a difference between thinking carefully and thinking endlessly. Careful thinking asks, what do I need to know before I move? Overthinking asks, what if everything goes wrong? Careful thinking eventually leads to a decision. Overthinking keeps creating new questions. Careful thinking prepares you for action. Overthinking becomes an excuse to avoid it. So the next time you find yourself trapped inside your thoughts, stop for a moment and ask yourself one simple question. Am I solving this problem, or am I just thinking about it again? If there is something you can do, do one small thing. If you cannot control it, stop giving it all your energy. If you're afraid, move carefully, but move. If you don't know the entire path, take the next step anyway. Because life doesn't change when you finally think of the perfect answer. Life changes when you act on what you already know. One evening, Daniel returned to the same park where he had met the old man. He found him sitting beneath the same tree. The small glass of water was on the bench beside him. Daniel smiled and sat down. He picked up the glass, and his hand shook slightly. The water moved. Then he placed the glass back on the bench. After a few moments, the water became still. The old man looked at him and smiled. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Daniel looked at the quiet water and nodded. "I thought I needed to control everything before I could move," he said. "But I was wrong. I didn't need to control everything. I just needed to stop letting my thoughts control me." The old man said nothing. He didn't need to. Daniel stood up and looked toward the road. For the first time in years, he didn't need to know exactly where that road would take him. He didn't need a perfect plan. He didn't need a guarantee. He simply needed to start walking. And maybe that's the lesson you need today. Maybe your life isn't stuck because you lack talent. Maybe you aren't stuck because you lack opportunities. Maybe you aren't even stuck because you lack motivation. Maybe you're stuck because you've been thinking about your life more than you've been living it. You keep waiting to feel ready. You keep waiting to feel confident. You keep waiting for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment rarely comes. Sometimes you have to create the moment by taking the first step. Think, but don't live inside your thoughts. Plan, but don't hide inside preparation. Be careful, but don't let fear make every decision for you. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to move. Because while you're overthinking the next step, time is quietly passing. While you're imagining all the ways you could lose, you may already be losing something far more valuable. Your time, your opportunities, and the person you could have become. The life you want may not be waiting for you at the end of perfect thinking. It may be waiting on the other side of one imperfect decision. So stop asking, what if it goes wrong? Ask yourself, what if it goes right? Then take one small step. And take another tomorrow. Because sometimes the biggest thing standing between you and the life you want isn't failure. It's the endless conversation happening inside your own mind. The more you overthink, the more you lose. But the moment you stop letting your thoughts control your actions, you begin to take your life back. If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories.